Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy podcast. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a newer, stronger foundation essential in creating your meaningful legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. As much as you like this podcast, I'm certain that you're going to love the book that I just released on Amazon, Fuel Your Legacy, The 9 Pillars to Build a Meaningful Legacy. I wrote this to share with you the experiences that I had while I was identifying my identity, how I began to create my meaningful legacy, and how you can create yours. You're going to find this book on Kindle, Amazon, and as always on my website, samknickerbocker.com. Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy show, and we have a return guest. I had such a great time with him on our first episode a few weeks ago. I said, man, we need to do this again because I have more questions. And, sometimes that happens and it makes sense. And sometimes it doesn't. And I'm grateful that Mickie, as soon as we said it, he went and got scheduled again because I wanted to have a furtherance of this conversation. So if you guys remember Mickie Kennedy, he focuses on a lot of things, but really focuses on how to maximize your PR and get the right press releases at the right timing to get the right momentum in your business. So we talked last podcast, and I'm not sure exactly the number episode of that, but we talked a little bit about how to get access to local media, where to start building a Rolodex, how to find them, how to kind of wiggle through all the papers to find who wrote the stories and reach out to them that way. But today we're going to talk really even more about how do we hone that message and really maximize our attention. It's good to see you, Mickie. Thanks for hopping on again.
Great for having me.
Yeah. Hopefully you're all ready for Thanksgiving. It's always been a good time in my life. So yeah, tell us a little bit about how do you hone, what's the process of honing your message so that it's appealing to the right people?
Right. So I think that, you really want to realize that journalists are storytellers. And so anything you craft, you want to sort of fulfill what, a story arc need. So when it comes to, for example, your unique selling proposition, what is it that you do that's different than everybody else? What is it that you've established that makes you different from all the other companies or services that are out there? For a lot of my clients, they say we're just a reseller in a local market. Everybody does it, and I kind of feel like that's a dangerous position to be in because if you're not unique, it's really hard to differentiate yourself in the marketplace, and eventually you just compete on price, and that's a terrible position to be in, where you're having to constantly do more for less. And so I think that honing what it is that you do that's different than everybody else, whether it's like onboarding, or maybe you have video resources for people. What are the types of things that you feel are attainable that you could do that you could protect as something that's unique for you? When everybody appears on Shark Tank, they all tell their personal story. And in a way, that's like they're part of their unique selling proposition, who they are, and what led them to create this product or business. And sometimes it's inspirational, sometimes it's obstacles that they overcame, they were laid off, or sometimes they're sick and they had some time where they just thought about something and it came to be. And I think the reason that almost all Shark Tank stories with these startups begin with these stories is because we relate to that. It's humanizing the business, and it's a human interest element, and journalists love a human interest element. And so, try to do an audit of, your story, what it is that led you to create your business or a product. Is there something there? Is there something there you could even sort of embellish a little bit? eBay had its early story for like 5 to 6 years when they launched, about how the founder was a programmer and he was creating an auction platform to sell his girlfriend's Pez collection. It's completely made up. It was created by a PR firm, but it humanized eBay, and it made us easy to relate to. Here's someone with a problem. They have this Pez collection they want to sell. How do you sell it and maximize the most dollars on a platform? And so it was something that worked really well. I'm not saying that you have to fictionalize everything, but maybe there's room for embellishing or really getting back to the roots of what caused you to launch your business or product or service. And maybe there's something there, something that a journalist could relate to. And if that's not the story, maybe that's part of the story that will be told.
Yeah, as you started telling that, Victoria's Secret is one where there's nothing there. It's all just made up, but most people don't know that. Or, I mean, I think now probably most people do, but before it was like, well, who's this? Who's Victoria? And it's just made up thing because that's what it's going to sell. So I think that just some notes I made that like everybody does it. It's such an interesting thing because I was talking to a friend of mine the other day and we were talking about this, how most people don't see their own gifts. Most people feel like they just are normal. The reality is there's elements of you that if you were in a room of 10 people or even 100 people and everybody was individually living their lives, people would be like, why are you doing it that way? What are you doing it that way versus the way I do it? Even when I got married to my wife, it was like, why do you wash the dishes with cold water? Why do you do that? Why do you fold the clothes that way? And I was questioning everything about how she did it. And she was like, stop questioning me. Why are you telling me I'm wrong? I'm bad. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm just honestly curious. Like and the flip side of that is a lot of people, they're just habitual in what they do. A lot of the stuff that I've done in my life, I have a very thought out process of why I do it that way. So if somebody asks me, why are you doing it that way? A lot of things, I have my reasoning. I'm not saying my reasoning's right, but I have my reasoning. So I'm curious on that element, but how do you, like, are there books that you've read or is it all just like self-taught? But how would somebody go and learn, how do I start to look at my uniqueness? Like, how do I start to dissect what I do in a way that is different from somebody else?
Well, for me, I joined a marketing mastermind years ago with Perry Marshall, who at the time was just an AdWords expert. But once, I joined the mastermind, I got to talk to other business owners, and these were the types of discussions that we would have. And, we would put each other on the hot seat and try to determine how we could make each other's business better. What were our weaknesses? What were our strengths? And, the idea of a unique selling proposition was one of the central things that we had to solve and build upon, and almost like build a moat around it, protect it, because we did not want, someone else to come in and sort of compete directly against us. Because once you're not competing on, like on a price level, you can really maximize your profits, but provide considerable value to the customer. And you just want to communicate what those values are and decide what it is that you're going to do that makes you unique. Is it your quirky culture? Is it, maybe the fact that you offer, free resources? Is it the hand holding that you have? Like at A-Releases, one of the things that we have is all the staff are editors, and there's no salespeople. And so when you call, you're not going to be pitched, or sold something. You're going to have people who can talk and walk you through the process. And I think that has helped a lot of people come on board who've never done press releases before. I think we probably helped over 10,000 people do their first press release. And so, that's something that, I feel really strong about. And, but it does take a little bit more effort, but it is something that I don't see anybody else in the marketplace doing, sort of helping people through that process and get them to understand, what a press release is and how to position them to be in the best place for that first release.
Yeah, I think that is honestly one of the biggest challenges in business in general, but also in individual lives where we're all struggling. I think even if I think I'm doing good, then I see somebody else and I think I'm struggling again. So, and I feel like it's a moving target as well with society. what's popular. Even if you think you figured it out 6 years ago or 2 years ago or last year, you may need a new angle to draw in the attention again. And that's really what's powerful about what you do, is being able to look at that and see all of the information and then help somebody with their specific industry. I don't know what my competitors are always doing or what they think is their unique angle. But as the editor who's seeing all this different information, you can say, well, there's already other 3 guys who think that that's their unique thing. So we got to dig deeper. We got to find something more unique than what you think you're unique about. Or we just say you're unique in this area rather than in America. You're just unique in small town Tennessee or small town Oklahoma or wherever, because we've got to create that uniqueness somehow. Is that pretty accurate there?
Definitely. It is trying to determine what it is that you do that's different than everybody else, and then protect it and build upon it. Create an asset, where you have something that is defensible and differentiated. And as a result, you can, maximize revenue and profits, where if you were just competing on price and you're selling the same thing that everybody else is, eventually profits will just erode to almost nothing.
So how are you helping people when you say protect it? How are you protecting that uniqueness? What's obviously you're doing a press release about it, but or maybe not doing a press release about that uniqueness, but how are you protecting that uniqueness for somebody, and how would we protect it for ourselves?
Right. So how you'd protect it is, you would recognize that this is a differentiator in the marketplace. And so all of a sudden, you would look and continue to build upon it, strengthen it. So let's say you had, onboarding for, people to use your product or service, and it was free. And maybe you had a video class of tutorials, and you had 16 hours worth of videos. Maybe you continue to add upon those based on customers' use and their inquiries of, bottlenecks and problems they're having. So you create more tutorials. So all of a sudden, instead of 16 hours, you have 50 hours, and you just continue to make it stronger and better, so that if someone else decides to enter the marketplace and also offer, free onboarding and video tutorials, that it's going to be harder for them to compete just on the sheer volume and the number of tutorials that you have covering all different types of aspects and how people work with your product. Also, what are things that you could potentially add as more unique selling propositions? What are other things you could have? Like, is it the speed at which you can deliver? I had one person in my marketing mastermind who sold sheaves. It's just like some industrial, I just picture a sprocket. And his thing was that he could deliver in a matter of 2 to 3 days. And most people in the industry work in a way where they don't have them in stock. And as a result, it might take 6 weeks. And he said the difference for this is you have an oil rig that's down in Texas, and they're losing $15,000 a day. And to have to wait 6 weeks when they can get it in 3 days is a huge, huge differentiator. And his pricing for the product was the same as everybody else. And what we told him was, and what he learned was, you can charge more because you can deliver something no one else in the marketplace can. He had a ready-to-build shiv system so that it was patented, and so no one else could offer that. And as a result, he could have 20 to 40,000 different sizes of shivs based on a small inventory, and be able to build in a matter of minutes and then send it out the door. And he was trying to compete on price while also having a big differentiator. And what he realized is he could be charging 4 times what everybody else is, because when someone needs a product like that in an industrial setting, they need it now. And he didn't raise his prices that much, but he did start adding, several 20-30% margins, where before he was working at much smaller ones, and he realized his customers did not walk away, and he continued to get a great reputation in the business for being able to deliver something really fast, and just really wowed people with the delivery and the performance of his product.
Yeah, that's such a great story, and I think that it's something that people need to think about on multiple levels, but finances is one major one. When you're in the marketplace, branding and story is everything. That's what I love about what you do, is you're helping bring that story to everyone. So there's branding and connecting with the people who are your tribe already, but then there's also like, how do you mass produce this story? I had a speechwriter who was writing one of my speeches, and I said, okay, come. I wrote it myself, but I knew I had networked with her. I knew her mind worked differently than most people's. So I said, hey, come watch me perform this speech the way I wrote it. And then I want you to be taking notes. And then afterwards, we're going to write the speech. She's like, oh, I don't know. I'm not that good, but I'll make some recommendations, whatever. She had no confidence, never done it before, but I knew that this was a skill that she had. She was in completely different industries. There was nothing that she had ever done in this industry of speech writing, but I knew that she had an incredible gift, really, of being able to think processes, simplistic, relatable to every demographic. Anyway, so I went and did the speech. Then we got on a call after. She pretty much rewrote my whole speech, made it super compartmentalized, easy, 3-step, 4-step process. In each step, there's these 3 points you're making, very clear. Everything was awesome. And she never mentioned any price the whole time. And because I've already paid for other speeches, I was expecting, I don't know why I was expecting this, because she wasn't really in this industry, but because I know what it would cost to have a speech written at that caliber, because I've had other speeches written. Then so she gets to it and she's like, so that's just going to be $200. And if you've ever paid a speechwriter, just so you know, you could easily pay $5, $10, $15, $20,000. And the reason is, and this is what I then educated her on, and you might think, well, what did you pay her, Sam? I'll tell you what I paid her. I paid her $200, and then I educated her. And the education that I gave her was worth more than the $200, because the first day I paid her $200. She helped me with my speech because that's what she asked for. That's what she thought she was worth. Then I said, look, we're going to do a free coaching call. I'm not going to pay you you're not going to pay me for the coaching, but I'm going to help you break down your business and show you how to charge this. Because when a public speaker gets on stage, and this is where, like, for you, Mickie, and if you're wondering, like, how can Mickie charge what he charges? Because it's the value proposition. If you give me a really good speech that I know I'm going to get on stage and I'm going to close X amount of business every time I give that speech, then what you've essentially done is given me a resource, like a piece of real estate, that every time I deliver that piece of real estate, I'm going to make $15,000, $20,000, $30,000. Every time. For the rest of my life, that asset's going to keep paying me. And you gave me that asset for $200, I'm going to go make millions off of it. Okay. And if you can position yourself and explain that to your client base well enough, then you can easily charge $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $10,000. I know speechwriters who have gotten paid $100,000 for a speech that they wrote. Why? Because they positioned it properly to the right person. And that's how it goes. So with you, Mickie, I'm curious, how do you how do you convey that to your client? How do you explain to your client that type of value proposition for what you do? Because I know it's there, but how are you explaining that to your client base so they feel like, yes, the rate of return that I'm going to get on this is absolutely worth the investment?
I think that one of the things that we talk about is, how you can leverage getting PR and getting earned media articles written about you. And, there is the influx of customers that come from an article. But there's also something else that happens. You're building credibility in the marketplace. You're establishing authority by being the subject of an article. It's almost like third-party corroboration or social proof when a journalist chooses to write about you. And what you can do with that is you can preserve it on your website, but you can also take these articles and the links and share them with your social media, as well as your customer newsletters and with your leads. And, what happens when someone reads this earned media is often they become customers, they become very loyal customers, because when they read that article, something good triggered with them and they wanted to do business with that company. They didn't open a new window and say, can I get something similar, cheaper on Amazon or somewhere else? They want to do business with this company that they just read about. And I'm guilty of it. I read blog posts and articles about Kickstarter campaigns. And the next thing I know is I'm clicking through and trying to find that campaign and support it. And I just feel really positive about it. I don't go and see, is there something similar or something I could work with that, the product for me isn't important. It's supporting the effort and having this goodwill. And that same goodwill that's generated can go to your leads. And, your leads funnel is always full of people who are not going to choose you. And, what percentage they are at, and they need to get to 51% to finally decide to use you. Reading this article and putting that in front of them could get a lot of people who are 47s, 48s over that 51% mark. And as a result, turn into customers for you that you probably wouldn't have gotten without that. And the same thing with customers. Customers always occasionally shop, just to make sure they're working with the best vendors. And, maybe they read this article and they don't shop this year. They feel like we're with the right company. This article is proof that we've chosen the right company to be with. So, all of those are ways in which you can use it. I had one offline client who was a local carpet company in New Jersey who came to me with a 1-year PR campaign budget and was really committed to it. I was very reticent about taking them on, and I did warn them that I think being a local carpet company in New Jersey, there's not a lot of newsworthiness that we can work. And having the discussion about a USP, there just wasn't room for USP in their marketplace. I mean, they did have some things that defined them, like a lot of their installers had been with them for years, and they were really felt strongly about having a good product and a good service. But we tried a few releases and it didn't do anything. And I think it was the 5th press release. We were doing one a month, and I was brainstorming with them and asked them who their enemy was. And I was expecting it would be like, David across the street with his carpet company, but it was the big box home improvement stores. And they just went into a litany of why they're so bad for the carpet industry. And, everything from the fact that most of the carpets get installed by people who are not carpet installers. The big box home improvement stores do not call a list of carpet installers. They call people who are licensed in the state to do home improvement. And these people may have never installed carpet, but they call and say, hey, do you have any availability to install some carpet? Probably about 6 hours of work tomorrow. And if you're a contractor and you don't have anything going on, you're going to take that work. And as a result, you're going to install carpet, and maybe you're not going to stretch it properly. Maybe you're not going to make the seam in a way that isn't noticeable. And so, that was sort of what they were telling me about. And so I said, let's do a David versus Goliath approach with a press release and see how it goes. And it did really great. It got like 10 articles, that one press release, in floor trade magazines, and they were ecstatic. I did point out these aren't your customers, though. But they just said, no, this is what we want. This is the kind of attention that we want. And so we continue to talk about marketing and how you have to leverage against a big company and differentiate yourself a little bit. And continued to get media pickup. Got picked up in their local newspaper and New Jersey Magazine, which is a really beautiful, glossy magazine. And they put together what they called a brag book. And they took, at the end of the year, they had like over 30 clippings. And whenever they went to someone's house to give them a quote, they would say, we may not come in the cheapest, but our installers are, have been with us for over 10 years on average, and we stand behind what we do, and rarely do we ever have to come back and restretch or fix a seam or anything like that, because we do it right in the beginning. And here you can see we've been picked up by Floor Cover Weekly. We've been picked up by this publication, New Jersey Magazine, the local paper. And when they go away, they started going away with like 17% more conversions with these conversations that they were having with homeowners, and just by introducing that brag book. And so that really shows you that, consumers want indicators that you're the right person. A lot of people, that's why people love referrals, because they have someone say, you should work with company X. It takes all this indecision of who do I choose, and it's like, these are the guys. My friend said these are the guys I should go with, and here you are with articles written about you, and these people don't even read the articles. They just see, thumbing through it and a couple of minutes. It's such a strong indicator that people choose them, and that's considerable growth in their business by converting 17% more people just by introducing that, because it is something that happens with articles that doesn't happen with advertisements. We see an ad all the time and our blinders go up. We're like, oh, we've got to ignore that. That's just noise. But when it's an article, it's a completely different experience.
Yeah, and I think that there's three things I want to really point out with that. First is what you ended with there, an article. And yes, you can do it online, but I think one of the powerful things is being in a print, not an online article, but a print article, because that adds a lot. I feel like print articles, even though it's like print is dead and almost nobody reads it, it adds a lot more credibility than an online article. Just with the people that I know and what I've seen, the in-print articles and magazines, they get a lot more traction, and they carry a lot more weight. This is one of the reasons why, even though you can game the system of a book on Amazon, okay, still having an Amazon bestseller, even though everybody knows that you gamed the system, still has more credibility because they can put it in their hand than if you don't have one. And that book doesn't have to be anything significant. It can be a little tiny pamphlet, really, of 30 to 60 pages big or small, however you want to say that. But getting an Amazon bestseller is it's a simple system. It's what I like about it, even though it's silly, is it's duplicatable. We all know how to do if you meet somebody who knows how to do it, they know how to do it. You can Google how to do it. You can Amazon how to do it, right? It's not that difficult to get an Amazon bestseller, but getting that stamp actually carries a lot of weight. The other thing I wanted to point out is, as they were going to you, you said, look, yes, we're having success, but this isn't really the best fit. Okay. I think that takes a lot of integrity on Mickie and his team's part to say, look, we're great at what we do, and we're happy to help you and do it to the absolute most excellent way possible that it can be done. And it may not be what you think it is, right? This may not be the best strategy for you. Okay, we're going through this. Now we've achieved some success. We've got the publications. We're actually picking up steam. But this isn't even your ideal client. Like, this person's not buying from you. And so there's two sides of this. One is, it's always great to have an honest, ethical company that you're working with who knows when to tell you, hey, we're probably not the right fit for you. If you want to keep paying them, that's fine. And what's really cool is that there was the other side of this. And maybe you didn't know this was their plan. Maybe it wasn't their plan in the beginning, but sometimes you pay for not necessarily the press releases because you're planning on getting benefit from the press releases themselves, but the social credibility goes farther than the press releases. So being able to say that they have this brag book, everybody needs a brag book. Every family needs a brag book. Every child. Are you building a brag book for your children? I have behind me, if you're looking, I've got a shelf of my brag shelf, right? Guess who the brag shelf is for? It's not for Mickie. It's not for the other person on the call. That brag shelf is for me, so that when I'm not feeling like I'm going to win today, I can turn around and say, I've helped a lot of people and they like what I did. I am doing good things, right? It's to resell myself on myself more often than not. And in parenting and in relationships, when somebody's having a hard day, do you have the receipts to say, this is what you're great at? Or are you just going to say, oh, you're awesome, you're okay, you can do it? Or do you actually have like specific things that you're writing down about the people that you love, about why you love them, what about it is that you love them? Really specific things, the unique selling proposition of that person. I mean, think about that. Have you even written one of those for yourself? Have you written one for your loved ones? Have you written one for the people that you care about in business and just offered it to them? Hey, you know what? I think these are your 3 or 4 things that I just know you're going to win because you have these 3 or 4 things. Just send it to them in text message. See what their response is. Because although that's not a major press release, it's a big, big emotional boost to the person you're impacting. So I wanted to highlight that for you because that's those brag books, everybody needs one, man. And if you're unsure about how to get one, go talk to Mickie, go get your life story published on some articles, and then just be like, look, my life is important. People wanted my article. They wanted to know about me because of me. Even if you're not selling something, because most of the time, how often do you actually get sales from the articles being published versus them as supporting evidence of why somebody should work with you?
Yeah, I mean, it is one of those things where sometimes we see sales come in from the articles and then sometimes they don't. And it's you really don't know. But the one good thing is that you could still take that article and share it with your leads, share it with your customers, put it on your social media, put it on your website. I always advise my clients to build a newsroom. And I know that's a big ask for a lot of small businesses. So I always say, well, do you have a blog? And they're like, yeah. It's like, well, add it to your blog at the very least. So you have a place where you're collecting this stuff and, making screenshots, because sometimes these articles will go away. They're always changing content management systems every 5 to 7 years or something, and all the old ones go away. So just make sure that you're recording it. You're celebrating your successes, sharing your successes, and putting them somewhere on your website so that people could continue to see them. I shared a story about the importance of press releases in just establishing credibility of an e-commerce website. One year, my daughter sent me something that she wanted for Christmas, and it was on this website that just made me uncomfortable pulling out my credit card. And so what I did was I explored the website a little bit more, and I saw they had a newsroom and they had press releases going back 8 years. And I was just like, no fraudulent company is going to go through the effort to build out all of these stories and stuff like that. And it showed that they had a real concern for their brand and messaging and communicating. And it completely made me feel that these people are legitimate. They may have a website that could be updated, but it made me feel very comfortable pulling out my credit card and working with them. And I think that anytime we do business with people, we're looking for credibility indicators. What are the signs that this is a reputable company? Is it the reviews that they have? Is it, what is it? And we all know that some places pad reviews. And I'm suspicious of doing business with anybody that has nothing but 5-star reviews. I don't trust it. And
Isn't it funny how that's changed?
Yeah. I look at the 1 stars and the 2 stars, and and sometimes they show that it's the bad customer themselves. They're just like, I stubbed my toe when I went to do something, and it's like this company's fault. It's just like, we've gotten a couple of crazy bad reviews in the past, and I just laugh because it's part of business, and you can't please everybody. But in the cycle of things, it's like we're overwhelmingly 97% people love us. And so the 3% that don't, we can learn from them, don't ignore them, but also recognize that there's always going to be this noise that people are in a bad mood that day. And things just didn't align, and they were looking for a story in the New York Times and it didn't happen, and we certainly can't guarantee that. So yeah, sometimes people's perceptions are so far apart that you're not going to please everybody, but I do think that it is one of these things where people are looking for signs of realness, and I think that showing the good and the bad is great. I don't like sites that only show the positive, reviews. Use a third-party site that lists them and has some of the negative as well as the positive. That's another indicator that I feel like this company is legitimate.
Right. So I'm curious. This just popped into my head. Being a PR agency, have you ever intentionally ran like a negative PR campaign about your own company just to get more traction, like using these experiences of people giving you feedback saying, hey, they didn't get me on the New York Times or whatever, and just like ran a campaign that sounded like negative headlines, but ultimately if they read it, then they would be more engaged, more want to work with you after than before?
I haven't personally done that because I'm always afraid. I'm afraid that so many people are reading headlines these days and not clicking through and reading the articles. I think that people are busy, and so I fear that misstep might be problematic. I'm not sure.
I was just curious because Trump does it all the time, and
there are people who work it really well because it is like a hook that draws you in. But for a lot of people, they read headlines and they don't click through, and I'm becoming more and more guilty of that as I'm really busy, and I just open up my news reader and look at the headlines and then move on.
Yeah, I asked another similar question to another mentor of mine and asked him, do you ever talk to somebody who there's no nice way of saying that, or I don't know a nice way of saying it. Maybe there's a nice way of saying it, but because he's a business mentor and his goal is to help people really succeed. And that's what I like about him, is that his goal is actually to help people, not just to make money, right? Because there's a lot of people out there just there to make money. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with them, but when somebody's real goal is to really make transformation and help people succeed, then theoretically you want to help everybody. But then there's the reality of time and effort and all of that comes into play. And then you end up just working with the people who actually want to work with you rather than worrying about all the other people who are too dumb to want to work with you. So I asked him, I was like, so I understand that you're almost always like protecting your 5 people and you're just working with people at this level who want what you have and are ready to be coached and mentored and all this. But do you ever intentionally go and try and explain something to somebody who is absolutely coasting, has no desire, no drive in life, just to see if you can understand their perspective to give you more insight on how to help somebody make that jump from there? And he's like, no, I don't waste my time with anybody under this thought process level. And I was like, okay. Because I don't know, it's just interesting. How do you learn to communicate? If you want to help the people who are in the ghetto, then you have to understand them. And if you don't understand them, then how are you actually going to help them? So you can think that you're trying to help people on one side, but never actually be communicating to the person or demographic that you want to help because you aren't speaking a language that they understand.
Right. And I think that it really comes down to education and having conversations. I go on podcasts because it's a way for me to talk about PR and some of the cool things that I see and patterns. And it's a great way to educate on, the types of press releases people should focus on and the types that they should ignore. But, it does rely on people listening to podcasts. And, it is true that there's a population you're probably never going to reach because you're never going to be in front of them. But I do believe that, by getting out there and providing education and being a resource and a positive light, so to speak, it makes a difference. And I think that, some people will come around and listen and follow your instructions. And when that happens, that's great. I mean, like I said, we have a meter on our back end at eReleases of the number of new customers we get every month. And some months it's over 300 new customers. And most of them had never done a press release, or they've never done a press release that's gone over a wire before. So this is like their first serious press release. And that's a metric that just really just energizes me and makes me feel great, seeing the new customers come in, because, they are the lifeblood of the business. These people are on average going to do 4 to 6 releases with us. And, that's really, a really great relationship that just starts. And, we want to do everything we can to sort of foster that and support them and educate them through that first process of going through and, figuring out what worked and didn't work with that first release, and just being there to provide support, resources, and help in establishing what they should be focusing on next.
Sure. What's let's say you had a business that wanted to do like a monthly thing. Do you have monthly subscriptions to your service, or is it, hey, once you pay for X amount of releases and they happen once a month, or how does that work on the business side of somebody who's building a long-term relationship with you?
Right. So we offer a la carte services. You can buy them as you need them. We do offer packages of releases where you can buy a 3-pack, a 6-pack, a 12 releases. We also have sales twice a year where we offer packages of 5 and 10 releases. And so we do have these bundles. What I find is that most small businesses in particular, a release a month is overkill. And, the carpet company came to me and said, we've got a budget. We saw what your pricing was, and we want to work with you. And we're doing one a month. And I was like, okay. But for most businesses, it's like 2 to 4 releases, a quarter, let's just say on average, 6 to 8 releases a year. It seems to be a natural cadence that works for a lot of people. Some people, it's just 1 press release a quarter. And so it's really finding a rhythm that works for them as in accordance with their milestones, what's going on with them, and, how much time and effort they want to devote to it.
Well, something I'm thinking about is like for events, if you have like a really big event that's happening in a year from now, and you want to make press releases about maybe who's going to be speaking at it, or what are the main benefits of it, and the goal is to drive attendance, but awareness has to be there, and people can come from all over the country or the world to be there. So it can be a bigger event, something like that. What would be a natural cadence or something to do a press release? And do you then press release about the event, or do you press release about the people who are speaking and then say you can watch this person at this event?
Yeah, I think that most of those types of releases get written in a way of before the event happens, and it's focusing on the speakers and what they will be communicating, and it's sort of a warm up to get people interested in the event. And so that's usually the ones that we see that are most effective.
Yeah, because I imagine, just based off of our last 2 conversations, that you would still want each press release to be have the very unique humanizing element. And so you wouldn't want it to look like an advertisement at all, but rather like a very much fall in love with whoever the article's about. And then the desire would be, I want to see that person in person.
Yeah.
I
want to hear, more about this conversation. It seems really intriguing.
Yeah. That's interesting. I haven't thought about that until just barely. So this is why I love these conversations. It keeps me thinking about what is the next step and how can we do that. And hopefully for each of you listening, it's a similar thing. Do you have any last thoughts, Mickie, before we go?
Just a little plug for my free masterclass. It goes through the winning strategies and types of releases that are meaningful. It's a great audit that anybody can take. And when they're done with it, they'll probably have 6 to 8 ideas for meaningful press releases they could do, thereby avoiding the press releases that don't work. And it's available at ereleases.com/plan, PLAN, and it's completely free. Just more of that education I like to provide.
Okay. I love that. And I'm so grateful for you coming on. Hopefully maybe we'll get you to come speak at one of our events. Because I think what you share and your expertise is super, super needed and valuable, and fits very closely with what I've done and who I've partnered with as far as helping small businesses build a brand. And yes, you can build a brand, but also people need to know about your brand. So you can't if you just build something but nobody knows about it, nobody's coming, except for in Field of Dreams. In Fields of Dreams, then if you build it, they do come, as they say. So thank you so much. And any special, I don't know if you have any specials or anything around Christmas time or the new year.
We do. If you visit ereleases.com, in our footer, we have a new customer special, and you can do a what we call our Newsmaker press release for $349 for distribution.
Awesome. That's way cool. Well, go and see if it's right for you. Go through the masterclass. Hopefully out of these 2 conversations, what I wanted to share and why I keep inviting Mickie back is I think, and it's my belief from a legacy perspective, that one, stories are important. Stories need to be transferred from one generation to the next, and learning how to do that in an effective, mind-catching way is crucial. And so you may think, well, what's this press release guy have to do with that? I think he has everything to do with that. His job is to get eye-catching content to the people who are purveying it, so that they're filtering it through and only determining what you see. So it's everything. Learning how to properly title and present a story in an emotional way that's going to drive attention. That's what it has to do with it. So that's one of the reasons why I've invited him back, because I want to be able to pass that on from a perspective. But also, I think that in a large part, the gifts that each of us have, they can go a lot farther than just our own families or just ourselves. I think that learning how to share those in a positive way that are going to drive attention. And one of the principles I teach my clients is the reason that money grows is because there's interest, right? There's some form of interest on that. And interest is a great word because it doesn't necessarily just talk about money. If you want to grow your life, you have to allow people to be interested in it. Otherwise, your life stays the same. And allowing other people's interest in your life, it fills you up. It helps you get better. And it also helps that person get better when you're able to share that information. So I believe that there's a lot more room for positive interest in our society, in all areas, not just financial, but in our families, in our religion, in our faith life, in our personal life. We need more interest in positive things, and be willing to share that and know how to share that in an effective way is crucial. And that's what I like about what Mickie does, is he's teaching how to do that. And going through some of these little micro things that maybe you don't think about, but they're everything when it comes down to sharing that information broadly. So please go check out his website, ereleases, like E as in Edward, releases.com. And then if you go to ereleases/plan, then you get that free masterclass. And once you get through that masterclass, you're like, absolutely, I want to do a press release on myself. I'm balding and I've got receding hairlines, and we're going to do a press release about how terrible this is for 28-year-olds to have receding hairlines. Whatever. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up. But do something. Do a press release about you and the things that you care about in society, because I think that it's important. Share your perspective, share your light, and share your drive with other people. Fair enough? Super grateful for you, Mickie. Thanks for coming on the show, and we'll catch you guys next time on the Fuel Your Legacy Show. Thanks for joining us. If what you heard today resonates with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me, and if you do give me a shout out, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Thanks to all of those who've left a review. It helps spread the message of what it takes to build a legacy that lasts. And we'll catch you next time on Fuel Your Legacy.